Hello everyone, welcome back to my product chat series. Today I have an honor to interview one of my favorite product content creators and my mentor too. He has mentored over 500 people and is currently a product manager as well. Hi Rudra, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Hey, hi, Rufida. Thanks for having me. I know that we have been talking about doing this for quite a long time now, and I'm just happy that, finally it's happening today. So yeah, great to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
For sure. So how about we start with your journey? Like how did you come across product management and your journey so far?
Absolutely. So I think I'll go about 3, 4 years back, really to sort of reflect from where I am coming. Um, So in India, I completed my master's in electrical engineering from IIT Madras, and following that, I was working in this company called Siemens Engineers, where I worked for a couple of years. And it was actually during that time, when I really sort of, at a high level at least, explored my interest towards product management. Right before then, to be very honest, I literally had no clue that there is even a role called product management, and I think I'm talking about 2016, 17, especially in India. I don't think back then product management was even something that most people were aware of, if I'm not wrong. So when I was working in Siemens, that's the time when I came across this term, and then I started doing my research. I actually saw, some of the people from my team who were actually based in US, right? So let's say I was working on a product as an engineer, and then I saw there were product managers who were managing those same products, just that they were based out of the Boston office, right, of Siemens. And that's how I, started doing my research. I started connecting with people on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And slowly I kind of realized that, okay, this looks to be a more interesting space to me compared to like the core engineering or the research, what I was doing back then, right? And that motivated me to, take that jump of moving from India to US. I came here for my second master's degree, which was master's in engineering management from Cornell. I graduated from Cornell in 2020, the famous or infamous, COVID year.
Yeah.
And even though, I knew that product management is what I want to get into, but I think there are like circumstances were not so favorable. I think, very similar to what we are seeing right now, right? The market being so tight and the competition being extraordinary.
Yeah.
It was kind of similar back then. So I evaluated all the all the circumstances and the situation, and then figured out that okay, it seems to be difficult for me right now to get into product management. Uh, but then I do feel that with some preparation and if I keep on kind of trying and building myself, there will be a time point in the near future when I should be able to land a PM role. And that's how things started. Initially, after graduating from Cornell, I was working with this company called HCL Tech as a lead engineer. From there, I moved to consulting, where I worked for a year. And then eventually from consulting, last year, in fact, around June, that's when I transitioned to Tubi as a product manager. So that's like in short my journey, how I landed in product management.
Got it. So since you mentioned about a few things, the first thing that you mentioned about that with some preparation you were able to get a hold of this. What preparation did you do and how your experience in other industries helped you to get into product management?
That's a good question. So I would say that there are some things that I was kind of able to, carry forward from my prior roles. So just for example, when I was working as an engineer, of course, as an engineer, you do things or think about things very differently than how a product manager does.
Yes.
But I think at the core, the development of the product is still involved. You are still trying to figure out, what's the best way to build a product, So I think there are some skills in terms of how do you design a product, how do you build features for a product. I think those are kind of things that I was able to carry forward from my engineering experience. And from consulting experience, I would say consulting I feel has like quite a few overlap with product management, saying that as product managers we are very sincere about managing our stakeholders, right? And I think it's pretty similar in consulting, because in a consulting we're mostly working for a client company, And then you'll have multiple stakeholders in the client firm with whom you have to kind of, work on a daily basis, figure out what their needs are, what their pain points are, and address them. And also, apart from that, I feel consulting also gives you more exposure to the business side of things,
Yeah,
because as a consultant, what you'll be mostly involved in. I'm not saying in all consulting roles, but in most consulting roles, I feel you will be very deeply involved with the business aspect of an organization, right? Whether it's, let's say, developing a new strategy, whether it's like, building a roadmap for the next 2 years for the company and things
right.
like that. So I think those are the things which I felt that, like greatly overlaps with what
Yeah.
we do in product management. So yeah, I think pretty much those were the skills that I was able to carry forward from my previous roles.
Got it. Yeah, you came from a really good background in terms of like for example, for engineering, you already know what goes behind engineering, and then you went across consultancy, I mean consultant role, which is more towards like business side. So you got both the aspects, and now you were able to implement it in product management. That's very good. Um, so when we spoke, like I think last week or last week, you mentioned about transferable skills. Like whatever role that I have, I can always transfer it in terms of product management. So for any new aspiring product manager, how would you, since you mentor people on a day-to-day basis as well, what challenges do you have seen like people on their resume, and how do you ask them to change it basically?
Okay. So yeah, I think there are actually quite a few. I'm not sure if we'll be able to cover all of them, but at least like, some of the top things which I consistently find in most of the resumes,
Mhm.
that come to me for review. So one is that, like, lack of emphasis on the impact of your work, right? This is a very, very common like topic. I mean, I know that there's so many people who are talking about this already. There are other mentors who are also talking about this, but
Yeah,
even after all of that, it kind of amuses me to see that there are so many resumes I get where, there is like great elaboration of this was a project, this is the task, and then when it comes to, okay, so what happened, right? I mean, what
exactly.
was the outcome? That's really the thing that people cares about, right? They are trying to see that, okay, you did XYZ whatever, but then what impact did it create for the business or for the
Right.
product, right? And that completely goes missing. So I think that is one thing I keep on telling people, that, like, take minimum space in your bullet to talk about the situation, and take maximum space to emphasize on what was your action and what was the impact of your action, right?
Yeah.
Without that, the entire bullet is kind of useless to say.
Yes.
The other thing I really find a lot of resumes is that, people um, talk about things which are not related to product management, right? And I would not lie, even I was in the same boat at one point, because, like, I come from a very different background. I
Yeah.
mean, even I at the initial stage was not really sure how to get rid of this, but eventually I figured out. But yeah, I do tell people that, when you are applying for a product manager role, the hiring manager or the recruiter, all they care about is, do you have PM skills that make you a fit for that particular job, right?
Right.
I'm not saying that you haven't done other good things. Of course, for sure, you have done great things in your
Yeah.
career overall, right? But if they are not aligned with product management, it's as good as, like, not adding any value for that particular role.
Right.
So I keep on telling people that, I think this is where you kind of have to put down your ego a bit. Like, even if you have achieved great things, very good, but then if it's not suitable for this role, just chop it out from the resume. So I think
Right.
this is another thing that I keep people telling about. And I see a lot of people, they'll talk about great skills in project management. They'll talk about great skills, as engineers. They will deep dive into, like, those engineering complexities, which are all good, but that's not really what is required for a PM role.
I really like that point. It's very, very important because when I was trying to create a resume, I think a few months ago, I was like, I don't want to let go of this because this is like a good achievement. But at the same time, it was not even related to product management. So you're completely right that we need to keep our ego aside and then work on it accordingly. Um, the other question was that once basically you are in product management field, it's a growing field, it's rapidly changing. How did you learn with time in terms of product management?
Okay. So firstly, just a disclaimer, I would say, Rufeda, that I am not really like a typical bookish person. So if you're expecting that I'll give you a list of 10 books, that's not
Right.
going to happen. I don't read a lot of books, but what I do read is a lot of articles and blogs online. So just to say a few, there are some really good platforms. For example, there's this one called Mind the Product,
Yeah,
who have some really good PM articles coming up, right?
got it.
Um, you can also listen to, like, podcast. For example, I think pretty much all of us in the product management space, we are aware of Lenny's podcast, I think, which is
Mm.
one of the best podcasts, I'd say, currently available. There are also other people who keep talking about, if you just, I think LinkedIn is such a great platform, to be very
Yeah.
honest. You don't have to go anywhere else, just go to LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And there are so many, like, great people, great PMs out there, really experienced PMs who
Mhm.
are always talking about a lot of different things. And I feel that for me, like, most of the knowledge about product management, how things are changing, what is coming up tomorrow, all of these things comes from, just scraping through LinkedIn and, listening to this podcast, or reading, like, the blogs or articles and things like that.
Okay, I think that's a great way as well. In terms of like LinkedIn is like filled with information. It's just that you need to follow the right people, you need to follow the right channels, and then you can get it there.
Right.
Um, so when it comes to any new aspiring product manager, when you talk to them, how do you ask them to build like a strong portfolio? For example, if they are a new grad, they won't have a lot of experience out there. So how would you ask them to build their portfolio for product management?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question, and I think it's relevant for a lot of people, because I do see that a lot of people who have just graduated, like you say, don't have a lot of hands-on experience. They're trying to get in product management, but again, you need to show that you have the product skills, right, in order for someone to hire you as a product manager.
Yes.
So I think there are a couple of ways. I'm not saying it's bad, but I am kind of against doing a whole bunch of certifications.
Yeah.
Because I personally feel that it doesn't really add a lot of value.
Okay.
And I've seen that, when it comes to hiring, the maximum emphasis goes into, like, how much hands-on skills you have in
Yeah.
doing practical projects, right? So I always, suggest folks, like, you can work on parallel projects, for
Mhm.
example. It doesn't really have to be, like, with a company or something, but, we have, like, so many, like, open source tools out there already available with us,
Yeah.
right? Almost kind of take us through the entire end to end, PM cycle, right?
Right.
So I feel you can use those tools and, come up with idea and build some product of your own, right? And you can even, we have, I'm not sure if Google Analytics is free, but then, like, there are websites like Wix and all, which will give you at least some high level analytics of,
Yeah.
say, you're building a website, so what's the engagement and things like that. So I
Yes.
think that's a good way of, like, of building your hands-on skills in product management.
Yeah.
The other way I advise people is that I've seen this on LinkedIn, that, there are a lot of volunteering or internship roles, which will be mostly unpaid.
Yeah.
They will look for, like, people who are just graduating and, who are looking to gain experience in product management,
Yeah.
right? So I always tell people that, you will get, like, your whole life to, earn and, have a huge salary and all those things. But right now, what's really important is to increase your skills, right? To build your profile. And I
Yes.
think for that, it's totally fine if you are getting an unpaid opportunity, like a volunteering,
Mm-hmm.
where you can work, in the product management space. And because eventually what will matter during hiring is your experience. Nobody is going to ask you that, okay, was it a paid or unpaid opportunity, right? Nobody cares about that. So I think, yeah, these are some of the things that I suggest my mentees. But I think the summary is that, don't I'm not saying that doing certifications or reading books is bad,
Yeah.
but if you really want to, like, get to the root of the hands-on skill, then you have to, like, basically
Do
get
both. Yeah.
involved in the work. Yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree. That's very, very important. Like practical. I think there's no proper book that would actually teach you. They would definitely teach you like the theories and stuff for product management, but in terms of like what goes behind it, you actually have to do it, because it won't teach you like you have to speak to like 10 to 15 people a day. It won't teach you that, of course. You just have to go in there and do it.
Yeah.
Um, Similarly, when you want to get into the field, how important do you think is networking?
Networking is like more important than I could probably emphasize, right?
Yeah.
And just to give you some data till now, so Tubi is my fourth company,
Okay.
uh, and then three out of these four companies where I've landed a job has happened through networking. So that's how networking is, at least for me, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, networking is important because of several things. So one, uh, you know, there are, I mean, it's a fact that in the current market, or even in general in the market, right,
Mm-hmm.
there are many people who are more or less equivalent to your profile, or more or less equivalent to your skill, right? You have to accept that.
Right.
But how do you stand out from the crowd, right? For a company, it's not possible that they will be going through 100, 200 resumes.
Mm.
It's practically not possible,
Right.
right? So if you really want to stand out, you have to, like, get into this habit of building relationships,
Yeah.
right? And it's not only for immediate gains. I think this is one problem I've seen in many people who
Mm.
are, who want to do networking, but with a wrong approach, right?
Yes.
So, they are more like, okay, I'll connect with you now, so tomorrow can you give me a job, right? It doesn't work like that. So the like of course, I totally understand the other person's perspective. I've been also in the same boat at some point, so I understand the urgency. But you have to come up as someone who is more professional, right? As someone who is more empathetic, right? You
Right.
cannot be selfish and just think about your perspective always. So networking is very, very critical, but you have to do it in the right mindset. You'll have to connect with people and give them a sense that you are not only to get things from them, but you're also willing to share things with them,
Yeah.
right? In whatever capacity you feel you can give, right? And I strongly believe that you know it's not about hierarchy, it's not about designation. Like
Yes.
everyone has something to. I have something to learn from you. I know that for a fact, right? So every one of us have something to share to the other person.
Mm.
But yeah, you have to do networking with the right mindset. Otherwise, you might, like, say that, okay, I have 10,000 connections, but nothing will work out.
Makes sense. So what do you think? Like, what's the right way of networking? Because, for example, you must be receiving so many connection requests on a day-to-day basis. Do you accept like any random person request, or someone who actually sent you a proper message with it?
I I think it in this way that um like I do accept people who might not have sent me like a note or something, but then over a period of time, I do get the sense that who is actually interested in building a relationship versus who is not,
Yeah.
right? So even though like those numbers might get keep on increasing, like in my number of connections on LinkedIn, but then if you ask me, like with how many people I'm actually interacting, with how many people I'm actually, like I've actually been able to build a relationship and actually been able to guide them,
Yeah.
that number is very, very less, of course, because like you said, not everybody will be able to sustain that, right? I mean, people get like very, I'd say, very excited, instantaneously, and they'll just throw you a connection request.
Mm-hmm.
But sadly, most people don't know how to sustain that
Yeah.
connection, right? So because sending a connection request, it's just a matter of one click and 1 second. Anybody can
Yes.
do it, right? But what really matters and what will matter for the other person is, like if he or she is able to build a relationship with the with his or her mentor, right, or whoever the other person is. And without relationship, I don't think um like you will be able to get a lot far.
That is true. Yeah, I like that. So, when it comes to networking only, for example, I have seen a lot of people, or I've heard a lot of people saying this, that once you send like a connection request to someone and once you initiate that conversation in the first like coffee chat, someone is asking for a referral. Do you think that's the right way, or you should just build that connection for some time and then potentially maybe ask for a referral?
So I think like based on like my experience of talking with a lot of people, and even like I mean like not the mentees only, but also like the other mentors, who work with me. I feel that um there is a certain way through which the person might still like ask for a referral, in not maybe in the really the fast message, but in the
Yeah.
fast few messages.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it doesn't really work,
Right.
because I'll tell you, the reason for that is that now getting this referral has become like such a common trend, right? I mean, you will literally see people who post things like, okay, just drop your email ID and I'll refer, right?
Right.
Now, that is like probably, that person has a very good, he or she is coming from a very, very good mindset, right? I've nothing against that, but I feel
Right.
so yeah, I mean, I feel that it has become such a common trend that you just blindly ask someone with whom you are talking for the first time to send you a referral, even if that person is willing to give the referral. It doesn't really add any value, because I feel that even like internal referrals,
Mm-hmm.
like, have certain like nuances to it, right? So as for example, I can tell you, like when I am filling a internal referral, like form, like on the internal like portal, right? There
Mm-hmm.
is a space where it asks me that how do you know that person, or do you have any comments, right? And see, I will definitely not be lying or making up things, right? So if I
Yeah.
really know that person, I will simply put a statement that I don't know this person. He or she just connected with me on LinkedIn and asked for a referral, right?
Okay.
And I think that pretty much conveys to the hiring team that what or how this referral should be weighted, right?
Yeah.
Now, having said that, it does not mean that it will have zero value if you really have a like great profile, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I feel that whether you get a referral or whether you don't get a referral,
Mm-hmm.
your profile will do the final talking. Even if you're
Okay.
even if you have a strong referral and your profile is not good, or you are not able to perform well in the interviews,
Mm-hmm.
you might go the initial first few rounds, but eventually will get rejected. I
Yeah.
mean, a company will not select you just because you have a very strong referral, but then you are not a fit for the role, right? So I think there is a lot of hype around, like getting this referral, because I'll tell you, networking doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's successful only if you are able to get the referral.
Right.
All these three jobs that I told you about in my career, which has happened to networking,
Yeah.
I think, except for this one, the one at Tubi, the other two roles I didn't have any referral or anything as such, right? I
Okay.
just connected with people directly from the company. I talked with them about my interest and how I feel that it aligns to what their company is working on,
Okay.
and then I kind of got into the process with the hiring manager, and that's how things flowed, right? So I think this is something that people need to be careful about. A lot of times many people feel that, okay, networking, like the success metric for networking is if I can get a referral or not. It
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't matter. I mean, like, even if you don't get a referral, if you're
Yeah.
able to build a strong relationship, today or tomorrow, it will work out. In fact, just to like give you some the candid story, I applied for Tubi actually 1 year back, before when I actually joined,
Wow.
and I got rejected at that time. It was for I think it was a product operations manager role.
Okay.
Uh, and there were around 5 or 6 rounds, and I got rejected after the final round, right? And then I always do this, which is that if I get rejected from an interview, right, I
Yeah.
always reach out to like whoever is the hiring manager or the recruiter, right? And then try to figure out that where things went wrong for me, right? So that I can learn from those mistakes, and I make sure that okay, I don't at least repeat the same mistake when I'm applying for my next interview, right?
Yes.
And I did the same for Tubi as well. And my director, who was the hiring manager for that role, he was also very very kind, because in general what happens is that you will see that most people, they don't care to respond back once you are out from the interview,
Yeah.
right? He was very very different. We in fact chatted, I think, for 10 12 more emails.
Wow.
I was just trying to understand from him, and he was trying to guide me that, Rudra, I think that these are some things you can do to build your profile and things like that. And eventually 1 year later, so that's how I build a relationship with him, right? It's not that I used to talk with him every single day. Of course he doesn't have time, even I'll be busy in my work. But then maybe in once in 3 months, something like that, I'll just ping him and ask that, Blake, how are things going at Tubi, how are you doing, and things like that, right? And then exactly 1 year later, uh, it was again a similar situation where I was just randomly, I just pinged him and asked him, like, how things are going and all. That's it,
Yeah.
right? And then he only came forward and told me that, Rudra, this role is open. So I know you are doing great in your current role, but if you are still interested in
Mhm.
duty, then you can go ahead and apply,
Yeah.
right? And that's how things happen. So this is exactly, I tell this story because this is exactly what building relationships mean. It doesn't mean that I build a relationship with you today and then tomorrow I'll say that, Rufeda, can you give me this? It doesn't work like that, right? It's a thing that grows with time. So you'll have to invest time. If you think that I want things overnight, then that's not what networking is about.
I completely agree. First of all, really, really great point. So thank you for sharing that. The thing that I really like was you mentioned about the internal, how do you approach like internal referral system, that there's like options of like if you know someone directly, or if it's more like a LinkedIn person who reached out to you, that's very good to know for me, and also for aspiring product managers or anyone who wants to get into the field or any field out there. So that's very important. So thank you so much for sharing that. Um, are there any specific educational paths, since you were going through engineering and then consultant role and then product management? Do you think that there are any like roles which could be a little similar? For example, one of the examples is business analyst. What could be other similar roles that people can target and then eventually lead to product management?
Yeah, that's a interesting question. So I think that one of the roles that I find is like, very, very aligned with what a product manager kind of does is, product analyst,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I have seen a lot of people who used to be product analyst, and from there they moved to like, being a product manager. So I
Yeah.
think product analyst is one role which is really aligned. Um, you said business analyst, I think that's another role from where a lot of people like, move into.
Yeah.
Uh, but in general, I'd say, Feda, based on my research and based on like the kind of people whom I have seen moving into product management from
Yeah.
different backgrounds, right? I feel that uh, whether you are in data science, whether you are in data analyst, whether you are a software engineer, uh, all of these roles are like good enough for you to move into product management. But the important thing is, again, going back to the fundamental concept, which is that you'll have to build your product skills, which are different than like the engineering skills or the business analyst skills, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the main thing I keep focusing on, especially in the US market. I'll say that most companies are flexible to an extent where they are really not rigid that okay, if this is the background, only then we will consider this person.
Yeah.
So of course there is going to be different level of struggle based on what background you're coming from. So I mean,
Right.
I know for a fact that people who are from like a software engineering or computer science background,
Mm.
they definitely have a edge while getting into product management compared to some of the core engineering backgrounds, like
Right.
electrical engineering or mechanical engineering. And there's a reason for that, I know, because most of the PM roles, they are like software based roles, right?
Yeah.
They are like software products.
Yeah.
And it's expected that you if you have some alignment with that space, then you are more favorable. So that's the reason. But having said that, I feel that as long as you are working on building your product skills,
Mhm.
it will not like really matter, like exactly what background you are coming from.
Okay.
Yeah, but you have to show your product skills, and you have to make sure that you have that mindset, because this is one thing I personally struggled with for quite some time before someone, one of my mentors, pointed out that, Rudra, um, this might be the right answer, but then your approach is not as per what our product manager is supposed to follow, right? So I think building that product mindset is very important.
Makes sense. Okay. And since you mentioned about a little about like engineering, like some in terms of like every engineering is a little different. So you have a higher chance if you are in like a specific engineering field.
Mm.
Do you think product managers require technical knowledge, or it's more towards like it depends on the company?
I think it depends on the, not only on the company but also on the specific role, I say, Rufeda. Because so just to give an example, and I think I was talking about this thing just yesterday with one of my mentees. So let's say you are applying for a role which is called a machine learning product manager, right? Now, it is expected that if you are a machine learning product manager, you will have some fundamental understanding of machine learning, right?
Right.
You cannot say that, okay, I don't know anything about machine learning and
Mm-hmm.
I want to become a MLPM.
Yeah.
That not happen. But most of the companies, I would say, and for most of the PM roles,
Mm-hmm.
it can be a growth PM. It can be a, you know, um, like for companies like, let's say, Tubi or Netflix, it can be a content PM, right? I
Yeah.
think in these roles, you don't really need to have a strong technical expertise. So, just for my case, I can say that I needed to kind of build some basic understanding of how softwares work, and how you build software products.
Yeah.
That was pretty much about it, right? Even when I, for example, when I appeared for the interview at Tubi, right?
Mm.
I remember there was a problem that was given to me, and I was supposed to solve that. And then my manager told me that, Rudra, don't worry about like the programming or anything, right? I just want to see that at a high level, at algorithm level, if you are able to break down this problem in individual steps and tell me how we can reach the solution. That's all I care about. You don't have to write the code or anything, right? So I feel that most of the PM roles are like this, because at the end of the day, as a PM, you will have an engineering team working with you, right?
Right.
So if you talk with the customers, you identify that, okay, these are the pain points, you convert them into certain product features, and then you take the features to engineering team, and you your engineering team is basically responsible for building those features, whatever that means, like coding or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So I think having a fundamental understanding is good enough, as long as like you can show that the way a product manager would think, you can approach a problem in
Right.
a similar manner.
That's very important. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. Just the last question. What advice would you have for aspiring product managers, be it anyone who is a new grad or be it anyone who wants to transition into product management?
So I think firstly, I'd say like you have to have a lot of patience, right? I give this example to everybody. I struggled for 2 years before
Mm-hmm.
being a product manager, right? And the reason I emphasize on this is because, again, I see a lot of people who want things overnight, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that. So you need to have a lot of patience, and you have to keep on working towards your target with perseverance. You cannot get rejected just by, like, just because you were not selected for, some job roles, which is totally fine. All of us gets rejected at some point or the other of our career. That's how, it is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I think on a more actionable front, I suggest people that, one, keep building your skills
Mm.
towards project management.
Okay.
because at the end of the day, like, that is going to be the most critical point that will decide that whether you can be hired as a product manager or not, right? So
Yeah.
keep building your product skills. Number two, I would say is that, networking, like, you cannot do everything on your own, right? You have to reach out to people, and there are, like, I would say, quite a few people who are actually helpful. Of course, there are people who might not be helpful, and who might not um like who might not come forward to provide you with
Yeah.
support that you're asking for, which is fine. Like, that's how, like, human beings are, right?
Right.
But again, the same thing, you cannot feel demotivated because five people didn't connect with you, or five people didn't, like, help you out,
Yeah.
right? You need to have that, like, I'd say, self motivation, and you have to be self driven, right? And just believe that there will be a lot of challenges that will come up, but, like, at the end of the day, if I keep pushing at it, and if I keep trying honestly, today or tomorrow, it will happen. I think that believing that is very important. And if you I mean, I really believe this. I've seen this happen at different instances of my personal life and career, that if you really keep trying at something honestly, it will happen eventually. I feel that there are very, very few things in this world which someone cannot do, right? Most of the things everybody, me, you, every single person can do is just about the perseverance, it's just about the hard work, and it's
Yeah.
just about the honesty.
I love that. I wanted to hear that. Thank you. Again, thank you so, so much for giving your time today. You're such an inspiration, and thank you for all the mentoring session. That's really helpful. Thank you again.
No, absolutely. I think it was my pleasure, and yeah, I had a lot of fun speaking with you, Feta.
The same year. Thank you again.
Thank you.